Hello there, and welcome to day 123 of A Film a Day with me, Jordan Woodley. Today I am delving back into the Disney vaults with the classic Princess and the Frog. I thought I'd bring a bit of an antidote after the heaviness of yesterday's Dancer in the Dark. Something very, very different, just to give myself that sweet relief. And in terms of the annals of Disney, I'm very close to having at least seen each Disney film once, pretty much like everyone. But if I was to go through the filmography of Disney releases, particularly feature films, particularly from the highlights of Disney, I'm reaching that point now where I have almost covered the prominent ones, but the one of the major gaps is Princess and the Frog, and it's been on my my radar for as long as it was released back in 2010, and I don't know why I was putting it off. I have theories, but it was one that I just kept going, oh, I'll get round to it, and over 10 years later, I finally went, you know what, let's do this, let's watch this, so I can finally say I've at least seen this film. So it stars Annika Noni as Tiana, the eponymous princess, although not a princess. It has, of course, Keith David, the wonderful, amazing Keith David, as Dr. Facilier. And who plays Prince Naveen? I forgot the name of the actor now. But it's definitely a staple of the Disney house style, particularly of that time. Bruno Campo, who plays Prince Naveen. There's something about the structure of Disney that is both formulaic and yet exploratory. I think the aim of Disney, particularly in the post-Renaissance, was to create worlds that are both familiar and yet adventurous. So, of course, we have the scapes of Agrabah with Aladdin, or Pride Rock with Lion King, or with Little Mermaid and the underwater kingdom, and the idea, I think, was to create the familiar and yet at the same time, allow children the opportunity to explore worlds through storytelling, through imagination. And particularly when it could be something that verged on historical. I think that, to me, that strikes me as their mission brief, particularly in the 90s and onwards, to sort of be able to tell stories and allow children to have this global perspective in regards to the kinds of stories that they could be told. So we have all the things like Mulan, and of course we have this. We go on to Moana later on. We really get that sense of the world being bigger and more available to the fans of Disney and the fans of those kinds of stories. However, this, to some degree, is marking an ending, where this is the end of the 2D. I don't want to say hand-drawn, but this look of Disney storytelling, this is really the end. Because after this point, as far as I know, there aren't any others that do it. But if they are, they aren't as prominent in the same way. And I don't necessarily know they intended this to be the last one, but this was really the point in which the more sort of 3D digital animated style really took seed. I mean, it had for a long time taken seed, but it really, took over. And the line between Disney and Pixar and their styles. And I know they are essentially the same, boiled down to the same thing, but the sort of in-house Disney and the Disney Pixar styles really began to become quite interchangeable. But yeah, so this does follow the formula of the princess, where we have Tiana, who is like many of the Disney hallmarks, is the dreamer, and she dreams, and it's a question of her dreams, not living up to the world around her, and then of course she meets the prince, and of course there is a villain who has machinations, and it has the traditional romps, I suppose. The bouncing around, having adventures with colourful characters and talking animals, and in terms of the beats, as I say, there isn't anything that unique about it in regards to the storytelling, and yet it manages to subvert our understanding of the in-house story, Disney story, where primarily the first thing is that Tiana isn't a princess. Now, she isn't the first to be a non-princess princess. Of course, as I mentioned, Mulan earlier, she again is not a princess, and yet, as Moana very metatextually references, the idea of her being an adventurous young woman with talking animals and singing songs really immediately means that she is a Disney princess. But really, what makes her a princess, I suppose, in Tiana's case, is the fact that, of course, she is having this flirtatious / antagonistic relationship with the prince, and the expectation that a romance will blossom between them. But again, beyond the textual, there's something in the culture of it. There's something quite romantic about the setting. I talked many weeks ago when I did a video on Soul about the musicality of Soul, and what really the problems I have with that story are overcome by the sense of music that exists within the text and within the visual, as well as the audio. And in the same way, Princess and the Frog has that same, the culture has music in it. Beyond just what you hear, beyond the songs, beyond the soundtrack, there is something musical in the atmosphere of the film, to the point where, you'll have scenes of dialogue or the way people move, and there's a certain musicality to it. And of course that really fits that New Orleans bayou style to it, and I think that's what blends it so well, is you have that jazz and the Cajun elements that exist, and yet the culture of it really elevates that experience. And the songs don't feel they don't feel separate from the story. They feel like they're merged, and that when you break into the music, it really feels authentic to the time and place. And like I say, this is really the ending of that style. I mean, as I say, that we then go on to films like Brave, Moana, Frozen. You could even potentially say something like Wreck-It Ralph. All of these films continue the Disney princess style, and just simply transition it to the new era of Disney. And yet there is something being left behind here. It's funny, really, when you look at the trope of the Disney storytelling, you could easily make an attack on it. That the princess structure, or the meta text of it is some people would throw at it, saying, oh well, the princess is there's something sexist about it. It's infantilizing young women, and it creates fantastical ideals. And yet what I think Princess and the Frog does, and what I think it really highlights all the way back to the early princess films, back with Snow White and Rapunzel and and Sleeping Beauty is the fact that it's the evolution of the dream. That's to say, Tiana isn't someone whose dream is to be a princess. In fact, it's very much subverting that, where there is another character who dreams of being a princess. Tiana's dream is to be a successful businesswoman and to fulfill a dream that her and her father shared. And really, that's what I think Disney's princess model was about. It wasn't about marrying the prince. In fact, if you look at some of the early stories, Sleeping Beauty, Snow White, for instance, they weren't really like the marrying the prince was really more a side consequence of it. It was more about enabling dreams and the idea that though it needed developing, the idea became, it was about a character having a dream and being allowed that dream, and that dream potentially coming true for them. And as we've matured in sort of our feminist storytelling, we've allowed that to become to match us. So of course, when you get to stories like Moana, Brave, they become, they take the romantical element out of it, and it becomes more about liberation, or in Brave's case, or in Moana's case, it becomes about exploration and yet responsibility. And of course, in Tiana's case, it becomes about self-reliance, I suppose. And of course, in Tiana's case, the racial subtext exists. The idea that her dreams can't come true because of her, being set in the 1920s, and of course her racial identity and class means that she will never get her dreams realised. And yet, the story is very much in opposition to that. The idea is, yes, you can have those dreams come true, and yes, it requires magical thinking, the wishing upon the star, and yet it's also about pragmatism and the idea that if you push and you work hard, that the dreams that your dreams can be brought to life, no matter what your racial identity, no matter what your socioeconomic conditions are. And I think that's a really powerful and universal ideal that I think the Disney the Disney model has existed even from those early days when they hadn't quite refined it, and has continued, as I say, with Brave, with Moana, with Wreck-It Ralph. Even we still have that sense of, oh, okay, we're evolving the idea. I mean, even with Frozen, which I know she's not a princess, technically she's a queen, but again, it still feeds into the idea of, okay, let's take the archetypical princess storylines and let's evolve them and explore them and use them as tools tools of empowerment and tools to sort of explore ideas of family, of responsibility, of your culture, of your community. And I think that's what makes that's what makes it consistent and not date. That makes it, even to now, evolve and change and grow and still be relevant. And yeah, I do think that it's a shame that Princess and the Frog really, it's not overlooked. People still appreciate it, but it's not hailed in the same way as the original Disney films are, or the Renaissance, or even the period now where it's we're in another peak of Disney. It unfortunately is in that one of those gaps where this is like I say, it's the last, because I think once they made this, they realised that this was really the end of that style. And once it had been released and not had that recognition, I think they realised, okay, we need to evolve and change the house style. Which is a shame, because I do think this is a wonderful film. I do think it's great, and I think it's up there with many of the others. I do wonder whether, because I left the film going, I enjoyed that. I enjoyed the songs. I enjoyed the characters. The story is very sweet and easy to follow, and yet it has something bespoke, that unique to it. But in saying that, I did leave thinking, well, it's not going to have left an imprint on me in the same way as ones of my childhood would, or even ones that I look at now and go, oh wow, that's really pushing the storytelling. It is potentially just a good Disney story, and I think, it possibly deserves a reevaluation, a reappraisal. But again, like I say, it's not exactly like it's badly received. It's just, it is what it is. But yeah, I thought it was fun. I thought it was very sweet. And again, I love New Orleans. I think it's a really cool setting. My fiance and I bonded over the fact that we were both interested in the area, and I think the music and the love of food and music and culture in the film, and really sort of feeds into the atmosphere that exists probably in the culture itself. And I think it's really quite, in that respect, it's one that appeals to me, at least. But as I say, this is a good Disney film, and I'm glad I finally covered it. But yeah, it's sort of indicates the change that Disney will go through. Anyway, thank you for joining me. If you like this video, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. Please do comment below, because it helps me in the algorithm. And hit that little bell to get notifications of when new videos go up. Over 120 videos at this point, so please do check out some of the others. And, of course, I'm on Twitter at Jordan_Woodley, where I'm always tweeting about movies and TV shows. And, of course, I share links to the videos as they go up. Thank you for joining me. Take care.